Welcome to One Word a Day. I'm Sophia, pilot into the universe of Chinese. Let's continue to unpack some essential Taoism concepts in September. And Yin is today's September. And you can see pronunciation as in, translation is in. And if you do yoga, we have in yoga. Both starts with letter Y, which nicely alliterate. But Chinese, I guess besides tofu, gongfu, or some other Chinese sounding uh, concepts, yin and yang, these are the two major, I guess, exports of Chinese concepts. And this is Taoism. This is, if we use boil down Taoism, it starts with yin and yang. And I am happy to finally, when I translate it into English, to use the exact sound of it to represent what in is it. Because it's, I guess in English, we incorporate this Chinese sound and slash concept. And kind of the Westerners know like there is no exact matching English word, like one word to match this Chinese originated concept. So that in sound was incorporated. Um, and actually, all Chinese characters probably deserve some sort of exporting of the concepts like that. Because almost just like the tian de heaven, I have to pin down to one very narrow banded meaning when the big one can be cosmos or individual, our nature can be so much more than just very Christian concept of heaven. Or zhong, it can be middle or center. English separate these concepts distinctively, but Chinese merge them all together, use one character to serve all like 2D or 3D, however you want to use it in the particular context. So that versatility of the language was lost in translation. So I'm super happy that we have a few concepts that made it to the English vocabulary. Well, when I say deserve, probably is not fair. It's a quick jump to conclusion. But as more Chinese characters I unpack, the more I realize that really when we do translation or looking at one language from another language point of view, oftentimes it's not one-on-one mapping, especially to two language so distinctly different. They came from different worldviews. And in you can see simplified, traditional, and 2000 years ago have gradation of complexity because simplified try to simple it. And the simplified version simply pair this side, we call it Dao because it looks like an ear, but that's kind of a cue for little kids and to memorize it. But in fact, it came from this abstraction of this high ground with top left corner of this one long line and stack three boxes underneath it to visually mean this is cliff. It's hard to scale up. I guess in ancient times, the mountaineer was almost like non-exist because you do need certain equipment and techniques developed by so many generations of mountaineers in such like the Free Solo movie depicted, so passionate about scaling up a mountain just by hand like that, with or without protection. I would imagine ancient times in China, very few people. I cannot say in absolute zero terms because I don't know. But this in Chinese concept is something like it's a cliff, it's too high, it's unscalable or unsurmountable. So it's like a blocker in there, or just simply a cliff somewhere you cannot go over. And here, the right side, you can see simplified, we use the moon symbol. We're saying, okay, one is nighttime, and we don't know what this ear looking thing is about, actually. So at least the moon gives the kids a clue of the moon, like the lunar energy associated with the in. So that's like a perfect match right there. And we stopped in there. So that's simplified Chinese version of explaining visually or conceptually what in is about. It's like the moon, the energy like the moon. Okay. But as traditional kind of preserved what this is about. But this preservation is also a little bit like lost as visual cues. When I look at this 2000 years ago, oh, I have more understanding what this is about. So according to scholars, I have to rely on other people's interpretations. That this concept in of such a big concept in Taoism, and when we try to capture the sense of what in is, instead of using the moon, um, back then it was using cloudy days or overcast days. We're using the sun symbol, which is this oval shape, with one beam. So one beam, just one is enough to show how the beam goes. It's broken down by these two horizontal lines. And this two horizontal line, and also this beam got bent. So it's almost like the ancient people's understanding of how atmosphere works, how they can, or the cloud can bounce, diffuse, reflect, deflect, um, change the direction of the sunbeam. So between us and the sun, when it's overcast, like this two horizontal lines, the sunbeam is going to be cut off. It's going to be twisted, distorted, or weakened, reaching to the earth, to the ground. So that's what this here is about. And then the top frame saying gathering. So we're saying it's not just a small portion that's partially covered. It's the whole thing. It's a whole gathering of the sky that the sun was blocked, that the beam from, we can still see light when, even if it's overcast day, it's not like nighttime, absolute zero light from the sun. So this is the effort to capture that on an overcast day when the cloud, whatever blockage we have between the sun and the earth, gathering of these two horizontal lines, this blocker, and then the sun is going to be weakened and redirected. And that's the concept used to express in. It's not absolute zero light. It's weakened light. And paired with this cliff image is because oftentimes on the ground level, if we don't use the sun as, I guess, a measure or expression of how much energy we receive. So it's kind of solar panels were not happy on those days. It's a low energy generation day. That's in. And then we also show the cliff there to mean on the northern side of the cliff. That's the equivalent of this overcast days kind of energy because the mountain served as this ground level blockage between the sun and the area it blocked. And so it's not like no light passed through. I mean, some light may be blocked, but it definitely gets deflected or reflected and diffuse the light coming over. So that's not a strong direct sunlight. It's a shaded light. It's like light in a shadow. So all that nuanced light. It's not like absolute zero of light. It doesn't mean darkness. So that's, overcast or in the shadow of a big mountain kind of light. It's what in is about. Now, pair that with 阴历, 阴间, 阴凉. We have three usage of how that incorporated into our everyday language. When we say 阴历, it's this kind of overcast in energy with 历, 历 means passage, means a journey with something with a beginning and ending. this traveling, it could be cyclical. And lunar passage together means lunar calendar. That's how we, ever since Chinese, I guess, connected to the global standard of how time was kept or the calendars of kept, then we kind of degraded our own lunar calendar, which is based on agricultural operations, the whole culture, civilization, thousands of years of agrarian society build this calendar. And we use that as our lunar calendar because it's marked by the movement of the moon. The lowered energy is not reflected energy from the sun, right? It's not direct sunlight energy. So we use that as our lunar calendar versus tomorrow I'm going to talk about the other calendar. 阴间 in space. Okay. The space full of in is a Chinese way to say netherworld. It doesn't mean hell. There's no expected torturing or whatever scary story about Christianity made about the hell. Chinese use Indian simply means it's a shadowy world. It's the in world. It's the energy low world. And it's not for the living to be there because the low energy not enough to sustain life. But we don't have that horrible thing associated with it. Okay, 阴凉, shadowy, cool. It simply means shade. It means in summertime when the temperature is so hot in the surroundings, you finally find a piece of area in the shade. That's the sense of what 阴凉 is. It's a welcome, the cooling station in a hot day. So that's 阴凉. So here, Chinese has a saying, what is in? Where to find that in? It's the 山北, the north to the mountain. It's going to be in. So it's kind of that cliff image implied that in China, because we're in northern hemisphere, the sun always like coming from the south side of China's land geography, right? And because the sunlight from the south, therefore, when we have a mountain block the sun, the north side of the mountain is where you find in. And the shui, nan, if it is water, the south side of the water is going to be in. Because most likely that water flowing between mountains and the south side of the water is where the north side of the mountain is going to land on. So that's the part that's not likely to be in direct sunlight, and therefore the water is even cooler, and that's where you find in. And I realized that that's very Chinese context based. In other parts of the world, the water may flow, river flow different directions. The mountain may orient in different directions. That is not the absolute truth. It's only relative truth to the Chinese language. And that's how Chinese define in, is to find that shade, that cool, that an indirect sunlight area. And that's in. It's not absolute dark. All right. Thank you for your time. See you another day.